This is not the future humanity dreamed of. This is the 41st millennium, a time when the word hope is a cruel joke and the galaxy itself has become a tomb that still remembers how to scream. In this universe, there are no golden utopias, no shining cities, no peace. There is only war, endless, grinding, ravenous war, so absolute that even the stars themselves seem to burn out of exhaustion. And yet, humanity survives. Not because of strength, not because of courage, but because extinction has become too merciful a release. For in the Imperium of Man, survival is not victory, it is damnation. You wake before the alarms because sleep is a luxury you no longer remember. The air is thick with metal dust and the recycled oxygen burns your lungs like acid. Somewhere in the darkness above, machines groan, ancient engines that have forgotten their purpose but continue out of fear to stop. You are one of billions, faceless, nameless, replaceable. A single cog in the endless war machine of the Imperium. The first sound you hear each morning is the distant chant of the Adeptus Mechanicus. Their voices warp through Vox systems, half prayer, half command. The second sound is the siren, the one that tells you that today, like every other day, you might die screaming, but death isn't what you fear, not anymore. It's what comes before that you dread. The slow unraveling of body and mind, the suffocating weight of knowing that your emperor demands everything, even your last thought. You dress without thinking. Every motion is ritual. Boots, gloves, respirator, last gun. The same uniform, the same weight of armor, the same smell of oil and rot. You cannot remember your own reflection. The man who once wore your face was left behind years ago. Maybe on Cadia, maybe in the trenches of Armageddon, maybe in one of 1,000 forgotten wars where the sky was always burning. What remains now is function, a heartbeat that obeys orders. A mouth that recites litanies it no longer understands. Hands that tremble only when no one is watching. They call it the Imperium of Man. But if you were honest, you'd call it a mausoleum that learned how to march. It stretches across 1,000,000 worlds, each one choking on its own despair. Cities built upon the bones of cities, oceans turned to poison, skies blackened by the smoke of centuries of war, and at its heart the corpse of a god, the emperor entombed upon the golden throne, his divine machinery devouring 1,000 souls each day just to keep him from rotting completely. His light once burned across the stars. Now it flickers, weak and sickly like the last candle in a dying cathedral. Billions pray to him, beg him, kill for him, but none can hear his voice anymore. The Astronomicon, that psychic beacon that guides humanity's fleet, still shines, but it is no longer pure. Every psyker who touches it weeps blood. Some say they can hear him, whispering through the static, crying out in pain or rage. Others believe they hear nothing at all, only the echo of a god who has already died. But that doesn't matter. Faith isn't about truth anymore. Faith is all that keeps the Imperium from collapsing into the abyss. So they believe, not because they can, but because they must. And what of the worlds themselves? Most never see the stars. Hive worlds, endless towers of metal and filth, each home to trillions. The sky is a myth there. Children are born live and die without ever seeing daylight. Their lungs fill with ash by the age of 5, their backs break by 15, and if they're lucky, they die before they're press-ganged into the guard. The lucky ones die in the factories, their blood becoming lubricant for the machines that feed the Imperium's hunger. The unlucky ones live long enough to understand what it means to serve. On the front lines, you hear stories. Worlds devoured by tyrannids, where the oceans turn to acid and the skies rain flesh. Planets burned to ash by exterminatus. Entire civilizations erased in a heartbeat because someone whispered a heresy. And beyond that, worse things still. Things that no mortal should ever name. Because in this galaxy, to know is to invite madness. To see is to be damned, and ignorance is the only mercy left. You sometimes think about what came before, about the old night, about Terra before the fires, about the days when humanity looked to the stars with wonder instead of fear. But history in the Imperium is a forbidden thing. The past belongs to the Inquisition now, rewritten, erased, or purified in flame. The truth, they say, is a weapon of the enemy, and perhaps they're right. Because if the people of the Imperium ever learned what was truly out there, what they were really fighting against, they would not pray. They would scream. But this is not the worst part of being alive in this time. No, the true horror is not in the death, the endless war, or even the madness of the warp. It's in the silence between battles. That moment when the guns go quiet and all you can hear is your own heartbeat. Because in that stillness, you realize something terrible. You are not fighting for victory. You are fighting because there is nothing else left to do. Humanity has become a beast trapped in its own labyrinth, gnawing at its own flesh just to stay awake. The enemies never end. The Xenos, the traitors, the warp-born horrors, but none of them truly matter, because the war itself has become the purpose. Without it, there would be nothing. And maybe, deep down, that is the most horrifying truth of all. They say the Emperor protects. But from what? From what? From death? From pain? From the endless decay of his own empire? No, he protects only the illusion, the thin, trembling lie that humanity still matters in a universe that no longer cares. And as you march through the ash-choked air, your breath echoing in the confines of your rebreather, you feel the weight of that truth pressing down on your soul. The stars above you are cold and empty. The light you follow is a corpse's glow. And you, like all the others, are just another ghost fighting to prove you were ever alive at all. Closing lines of Section I, transition into the next act somewhere far above the trenches. A new order crackles through the Vox. Another campaign, another world to burn, another dawn of slaughter. You tighten your grip on your weapon. Your hands shake, not from fear but from memory. Because you know that soon, he never was. The orders came at dawn, though a dawn is a word that has lost all meaning here. The sky above Vardos Secundus hasn't shown light in centuries. The clouds are black with soot, the ground a graveyard of twisted metal and bone. The campaign reports called it a strategic reclamation. But to those who fight here, it's just another suicide. You and your regiment, the 317th Cadian Remnants, are told to advance through Sector Delta, where communications died 3 weeks ago. The enemy, unknown. Purge and secure. The reward, survival, if the Emperor wills it. You'd laugh if your throat weren't so dry. You've heard this order 100 times before, and every time, fewer of you come back. As you march, the ground shifts underfoot. Ash falls like snow, coating your armor in gray. The air hums faintly, a vibration you can't explain. It's not the wind. Whoa. It's not machinery, it's something deeper. The kind of sound that doesn't travel through the air, it travels through your bones. The squad vox crackles. A voice, thin, broken, filters through the static. A command? Delta route compromised, shadows moving. Repeat, shadows, then silence. Your captain raises his hand. The line halts. Even through the filters of your mask, you can taste the tension, metallic and sharp. You've heard stories about this sector, how the ground itself bleeds when you dig too deep, how soldiers vanish without a sound, their lasgun still warm when found. How the Emperor's name brings no comfort here, and yet you march, because that's what you were born to do, to obey, to advance, to die. Hours pass. The darkness grows thicker until it's hard to tell if it's night or just the planet itself closing its eyes. You switch to night optics, nothing. The Auspex reads static. The ground feels soft, almost pulsing. Then faintly, movement, not ahead, below. A low groan echoes through the ruins, deep and mournful, like the planet itself crying out. Then the world splits open. The first scream comes from behind. You turn just in time to see one of your comrades dragged into the earth, swallowed whole by the trembling soil. You fire into the darkness, lost beams slicing through smoke and dust, but there's nothing there. Only the sound of breathing, wet, slow, and impossibly close. Someone shouts, "Oh, form up!" Hold formation, but it's too late. The ground erupts, and they come. At first, you think it's a trick of the light. Figures made of flesh and metal, crawling on all fours, faces stretched in eternal agony. Servitors, once human, now machine, but something is wrong with them. Their eyes glow with sickly blue fire, their limbs twitching as if pulled by invisible strings. You shoot one through the chest. It doesn't fall. Another leaps, silent and fast, tearing through a man's throat with rusted claws. The squad breaks. The formation collapses. You run. You don't remember deciding to, but your legs move on their own. Around you, screams and gunfire blend into chaos, a storm of death and static. And through it all, the whispering begins. Not through the vox, not through the air, but inside your head. A voice that sounds like yours, but older. It tells you to stop. It tells you to listen. You stumble into the ruins of an old hab block, heart hammering. The walls are covered in symbols, burned into the metal. Spirals, eyes, prayers. One word repeats again and again, etched in blood and soot. Remember. You stare at it until the world blurs. And in that moment, you realize something horrifying. You do remember. You've been here before. This battle, this ruin, this very breath. over and over again, each time dying in a different way, each time waking to do it again. The voice inside your mind laughs, low, endless, like a machine choking on static. And you understand, this isn't war anymore, this is punishment. They say the warp twist reality, that it breaks time, memory, and flesh alike. But no one ever told you it could trap a soul in repetition, forced to relive its own suffering across millennia. You fall to your knees. The ground beneath you pulses like a heartbeat. You press your hands to your ears, but the whispers grow louder. Do you see it now? The voice asks. The Emperor's light doesn't guide you, it feeds on you. You scream his name, not in prayer, but in rage. For the first time in your life, you stop believing. And in that instant, the voice grows silent. The silence is worse than the noise. Your vision flickers, the world trembles. Shapes move in the shadows. Familiar faces, comrades you buried months ago. They smile through broken jaws, eyes glowing faintly. And then you hear the captain's voice through the vox again, calm, mechanical. Advance, soldier. The Emperor protects. Tone is wrong, too even, too clean. Like a recording that's been played 1,000 times. You look around, every soldier frozen mid-step, eyes dead and glassy. Only you are moving, only you are awake. And as you realize that, something inside you breaks. Because now you understand what it truly means to be alive in this age. It isn't living. It's remembering your death again and again until even eternity gives up. The light from above flickers, not sunlight, but fire. The sky opens in crimson tears, and from within, 1,000 voices cry out in ecstasy and torment. The warp has found you. And the worst part, you almost feel relief. Because in this nightmare, even damnation feels like a release. You whisper one last prayer, not to the Emperor, but to anyone who might be listening. If this is what it means to serve, then let me forget. The voice in your mind answers, soft and cold, then you already have. And that's when you realize the horror of the Warhammer 40K universe isn't just in its battles or its monsters. It's in the silence between them. It's in the endless repetition of pain, duty, and loss. A loop with no mercy, no meaning, no end. So the next time you hear the words of the Emperor protects, remember this story. Remember the ones who still fight even when there's nothing left to believe in. And remember that sometimes the most horrifying thing isn't dying in the 41st millennium, it's living in it. When you wake, the war is gone. No gunfire, no screams, no comrades, just silence, heavy, absolute suffocating. You lie on cold stone, armor cracked, the taste of iron in your mouth. The air feels wrong, thicker. Too still, you can't tell if you're breathing or if the air itself is breathing you. Your helmet's display flickers. No signal, no coordinates, no heartbeat feed. Only a single word pulses across the cracked visor. Remember, you rise slowly, every movement echoing through the stillness. You are in a cathedral, or what used to be one. Its walls stretch into darkness, vast and impossible, like the inside of a dead god. Candles burn with no flame. Statues of saints stare down, their faces melted in weeping rust. And at the far end of the hall, a throne. Not golden, not radiant, black, burned. Its surface alive with shifting symbols that crawl and vanish when you blink. You know this place. You've seen it before, in dreams and flashes, in the brief moments between death and waking. It is the heart of your curse. It is where everything ends and begins again. As you approach, the air hums, that same deep vibration from before. A voice speaks from everywhere and nowhere. You return again, child of flesh. It is not a sound, it's a pressure, a weight inside your skull. You freeze. Who are you? As though the words come out cracked, barely human. The voice laughs, slow, almost gentle. Who am I? I am what remains when belief dies. I am the echo that feeds on prayer. You realize too late that the voice is familiar. It's the same one that whispered in your mind during the battle, the one that told you to listen. You whisper. You did this. You trapped me here. No, the voice says almost tender. You did. You built your cage with faith and obedience. You wore your chains with pride. The shadows stir. From them emerge figures. Soldiers, priests, civilians, all with hollow eyes, all wearing the same insignia you do. Each one a reflection of yourself at a different moment. Each one dead. The realization cuts deeper than any blade. You are looking at your own ghosts. Ah, you whisper. Oh, why show me this? Oh, because you have forgotten, the voice replies. You think you serve a god. But tell me, what kind of god demands 1,000 souls a day to stay alive? What kind of savior must burn a galaxy just to keep breathing? The words hit like gunfire. You want to scream to deny it, but the truth coils inside you like a parasite, because part of you already knew. Numb. You see flashes, memories that aren't memories, worlds burning not because of heresy but convenience, whole cities silenced not by chaos but by order, children offered in sacrifice, their screams disguised as hymns. The Imperium calls it duty, but duty is just another name for obedience without conscience. You remember the prayers you spoke each morning, the litanies drilled into you since birth. The Emperor protects, the Emperor guides, the Emperor is eternal. But the voice now twists them into something else. The Emperor consumes, the Emperor commands, the Emperor endures through you. You fall to your knees, your faith once iron now feels like dust. The truth is too vast, too cruel to fit inside your mind, and yet it keeps pushing, forcing its way in. The voice continues, quieter now, almost kind. You wanted purpose, you wanted to matter, so you became a weapon, a tool, a sacrifice that never ends. You lift your head, eyes burning. Then what am I? A puppet? A ghost? The silence that follows is worse than any answer. Finally, the voice says, you are the dream of a dying god, the memory he cannot let go. You fight because he cannot forget, and every time you die, he remembers a little less. The realization hits you like a detonation. You are not a soldier, you are a fragment. One thought in the mind of the Emperor, replaying a memory of war that ended 10,000 years ago. You are the echo of his guilt. That is why you relive the same battles, the same deaths, the same prayers. You are trapped inside the Emperor's memory, a soul caught in the dying dream of divinity. You scream until your voice breaks. The cathedral trembles, the statues weep molten tears. For the first time, you understand the scale of your prison. The Imperium itself is not alive. It's a fossil animated only by the memory of what it once was, a god's nightmare pretending to be a civilization. And as you realize this, the voice grows quiet. You see it now, it whispers. You see the truth. You nod, shaking. Then let me out. A pause, then soft laughter fading into the distance. There is no out. There never was. The Emperor cannot wake, and neither can you. The cathedral begins to dissolve. The walls stretch into infinity. The floor crumbles beneath you. You fall, not through space, but through memory itself. Past 1,000 lifetimes, past every death you've ever lived. You see faces, planets, wars, all fading into the same gray nothingness, and then silence again. When you open your eyes, you are back in the trenches. The siren wails, your captain calls your name, and the cycle begins anew. But this time you remember everything. That is the true horror of the 41st millennium. Not the war, not the monsters, but the knowledge that even the gods have gone mad, and humanity lives only because they cannot wake from their nightmare. And somewhere in that endless dream you march on. Oh, but knowing the truth changes nothing. Knowing the truth only makes it worse. Because in this universe, even enlightenment is just another form of torment. You are awake again, but this time it feels different. The world hasn't reset properly. The sky is cracked, split by fissures of light that burn and bleed at once. The voices of your regiment echo out of sync. Fragments of speech overlapping, repeating, glitching. The Emperor's name no longer carries weight in your mind. The words fall from your lips like ashes. And with every step you take, you feel less like a soldier and more like an intruder in someone else's reality. You remember the truth, that you are a memory, a whisper in a dying god's dream. But even dreams can collapse. Even gods can forget. And so you decide you will force the end. You will make the Emperor remember you. The trenches stretch endlessly before you, a labyrinth of mud and bone. The soldiers around you move in perfect rhythm. The same faces, the same actions over and over. You call one by name. He doesn't respond. You step closer, pull his mask aside, and there's nothing underneath. Just light, white blinding light, shaped like a human that forgot what flesh was. You are back in the trench. The siren blares. Your captain calls your name. The cycle begins again. You laugh softly, not from madness but understanding. Because now you know, the universe doesn't end with destruction. It ends with repetition. Eternal, unbroken, merciless repetition. And as long as the Emperor remembers, so will you. You pick up your weapon, you march into the smoke, and the dream continues. The siren wails. You open your eyes to the same gray sky, the same choking air, the same voice shouting orders that have no meaning anymore. Everything is identical, but you are not. You remember. The others move like clockwork, repeating their eternal choreography of despair. You walk among them silent, a ghost inside a memory that refuses to decay. You've tried dying, you've tried surrendering, you've even tried defying the voice of the God who dreams you. None of it mattered. The dream always resets, but this time something feels different. The air hums not with the Emperor's divine energy, but with instability, like the universe itself is beginning to question its own heartbeat. You glance up. The sky is bleeding again, but not the sickly red of the warp. This is gold, pale and trembling, like the memory of sunlight trying to return. You wander beyond the trench, past the corpses that never rot, past the broken banners, frozen mid-flutter. The land stretches into infinity, black glass and ash reflecting an empire that never truly existed. And there, in the distance, something moves, not a soldier, not a demon, something vast and luminous, crawling across the horizon like a wounded god. Each step shakes the ground. Each breath bends the sky. It takes you a moment to understand what you're seeing. It's him, the Emperor, not the image worshipped in cathedrals, not the corpse chained to the golden throne. This is what remains beneath the myth. The shadow of a dying god still dreaming his empire into being. And for the first time, you don't feel fear, you feel pity. You walk toward him, your footsteps echoing through the stillness. The ground fractures under your weight, cracks spreading like veins of light through glass. Each crack shows glimpses of other worlds, Armageddon, Macragge, Holy Terra, all burning, all looping. And within each reflection, another version of you marching, dying, remembering. You call out, voice shaking. Do you hear me? The figure stops. The golden light flickers, fading to dim embers. When he speaks, his voice is not thunder or command. It's the quiet sorrow of something too vast to weep. I remember you, he says. You were the first face I ever saw in the dark. You tremble. I then end it. Let it all stop. He lowers his head, and for a moment you think he might. But then you see it. The chains. Not iron, but light. They bind him to the very stars woven through time itself. Every prayer, every scream, every act of worship tightens them further. I cannot, he whispers. They still believe, and belief gives shape to the dream. You fall to your knees. Then belief is the cage. Yes, he says softly, and you are its echo. You realize then what he meant before. You are not just his memory. You are the memory of belief itself, the last spark of humanity's faith made flesh. And as long as even one mortal whispers the Emperor protects, neither of you can die. You stare at him, the god who cannot wake, and the soldier who cannot sleep, two prisoners bound by the same curse, devotion. The air begins to hum again, louder now. The cracks widen. The light grows unstable. The dream is collapsing. You could let everything end, and in doing so, free the galaxy from its false salvation. But you hesitate, because destruction feels too much like mercy, and mercy has no place here. The world around you is unraveling. Light fractures into ribbons. Time folds inward, replaying its worst moments like a broken prayer wheel. Every scream echoes backward, repeating in perfect symmetry. Life and death blurring into one ceaseless hymn. You look down at your hands. They are transparent now, not fading, but revealing what lies beneath. The pure idea of belief itself. Faith stripped of flesh. Purpose without meaning. The Emperor watches. His form flickers, golden 1 second, skeletal the next. The god and the corpse are no longer distinct. They are the same. An endless dream of salvation devouring itself. Why? You ask him. Why keep it going? Why not let humanity rest? He does not answer immediately. His gaze drifts to the distance where billions of souls burn like distant candles. When he finally speaks, it is not to justify. It is to confess. Because they need it, he says quietly. Without the dream, they are nothing. And without them, I am nothing. It hits you like a physical blow, the scale of it all. The Emperor's power does not come from the warp or divine purpose. It comes from the belief of the dying. Every guardsman whispering a prayer before battle. Every mother clutching a relic as the sky falls. Every child born beneath the shadow of a cathedral world. Their fear fuels him. Their hope sustains him. And your endless life, your looping nightmare, ensures that cycle never ends. You begin to understand the true shape of the horror. This isn't hell because of demons or monsters. It's hell because of faith. Faith that refuses to die even when the gods do. The cracks in reality widen until there is nothing left but white light. The noise of eternity collapses into silence. And in that silence, you finally do something no soldier has ever done. You stop praying. For the first time, your mind goes quiet. No oaths, no hymns. Just silence. At first, nothing happens. Then, a sound, a breath, a single heartbeat that is not your own. You look up. Wow. The Emperor's form flickers again, but this time it's fading. Piece by piece, his light dissolves into the air, scattering like dust on solar winds. And as he disappears, he whispers one last word, soft as a dying star. Thank you. The battlefield fades. The stars dim, the stars dim. You are left alone, suspended between what was and what will never be again. No gods, no orders, no faith, only the quiet ache of freedom. You open your mouth to speak, but no sound comes. There's nothing left to say. The nightmare is over, or maybe it's simply waiting for someone new to believe. Because in the grim darkness of the far future, there is no peace. There is only the echo of prayers long forgotten, and the memory of those who dared to stop believing. It starts faintly, a vibration at the edge of existence, like the whisper of a forgotten frequency. Something hums in the void, faint but growing, weaving through the ashes of dead stars. You recognize it before you even understand it. It's a voice, not yours, not his. Something new, something born from what you erased. The dream, it seems, never truly dies. It only mutates. Somewhere in the ruins of a forgotten world, a child opens their eyes for the first time. They see no sky, only the reflection of burning cities in a sea of oil and blood. They don't know your name. They don't know what came before. But in their tiny trembling hands, they hold a charm, a small metal sigil half broken, engraved with a phrase that has outlasted gods. The Emperor protects. The words mean nothing to them. They are just sound, a relic of something ancient and incomprehensible. But the moment the words are spoken, the air shivers. Somewhere in the void, a spark reignites, a heartbeat returns, a dream stirs, and far beyond mortal sight, a golden eye opens. For the briefest moment you feel it, that same pulse you thought you'd destroyed. It stretches through time and space like a nerve made of light, reaching back toward the ashes of your memory. The cycle has begun again. You can feel yourself dissolving, unmade, scattered into the next iteration of the dream. No longer a soldier, no longer a believer, just an echo. A fragment of what once tried to stop eternity and failed. The new dawn is the same as the old one. The same sky, the same pain, the same desperate trembling hope. But this time, something within it has changed. A whisper under the surface, quiet but unyielding. And a single buried truth carried forward in the bloodstream of humanity. That once, someone dared to defy the dream. Maybe that's enough. Maybe that tiny act of rebellion is the beginning of something even gods cannot predict. Maybe faith, like fire, can burn its creator just as easily as it warms the world. The hum fades, the voice disappears, the universe exhales, and all that remains is the echo, drifting through the void, soft as a dying prayer, endless as time itself. The Emperor protects. The void is silent. All. For the first time in 1,000 ages, the stars do not whisper. The hum of the warp has stilled. But deep within that silence, something still thinks it is not human, not divine. It's the residue of memory itself, the psychic imprint of everything that was, everything that still refuses to fade. Every prayer ever whispered, every scream ever cut short, every soldier who looked up at a dying sky and begged to be remembered. You were there too, not as flesh, not as will, but as echo, a shadow within the ghost of time. You can feel them, billions upon billions, replaying their agony across eternity, each one a memory preserved against oblivion, refusing to die because somewhere someone still remembers. And that is the truth the Emperor never told. Immortality is not life without death. It is memory without forgetting. It is the eternal replay of pain, devotion, and loss, stretched across the void until meaning erodes, leaving only pattern. You begin to see them, worlds repeating like reflections in broken glass, empires rising and falling in perfect synchronization, each collapse birthing another, each rebirth feeding the same lie. History has no direction. It is a circle carved in blood. The Imperium calls it destiny, the warp calls it hunger, but in truth it is memory, feeding on itself to survive. You drift through it through time's carcass. You see the past, present, and future bleeding together, the Horus heresy burning beside the siege of Terra, the Tyranid wars swallowing the birth of the Astronomicon, the moment the Emperor was crowned and the moment he died, happening in the same breath. And through it all, one question echoes in your mind: who remembers the ones who wanted to forget? Maybe that's why you're still here. Maybe your existence isn't punishment or salvation. It's a warning, because if even one soul recalls the nightmare, then the nightmare still breathes. And that is the real price of memory. In the end, you understand the final irony. Humanity feared forgetting because it thought memory kept it alive. But memory is the cage, the thing that traps gods and mortals alike in the same repeating agony. And the only way to be free is to be forgotten. So you let go, you stop reaching, you stop remembering, you dissolve, not in pain, but in peace. For the first time since the dawn of man, you feel nothing. And in that nothingness, the universe finally exhales. But as the last particle of your consciousness fades, you hear it again. Distant, faint, and heartbreakingly familiar. Remember the Emperor, a whisper carried on the wind of time. A single human voice, fragile, desperate, eternal. The dream restarts, the cycle reawakens, and the price of memory is paid once more. The void trembles again, not violently, but rhythmically, like the pulse of something ancient shifting beneath the fabric of reality. You recognize it now, not a storm, not the warp, but breath. The cosmos is breathing. Each exhale is a millennium. Each inhale, a rebirth of suns and species, and within that breath lies the consciousness of one being vast beyond understanding, fractured across eternity. The Emperor, not as a man, not even as a god, but as the dreamer, the one who conjured a galaxy from the chaos of thought and never woke up. You drift closer to that thought and it envelops you. It is neither light nor darkness, but both, the paradox that defines existence itself. You see flashes, Terra as it once was, green, radiant, alive. The first psychers discovering their power, the slow, horrifying realization that every mind is a window into the same sleeping god. The Emperor didn't create humanity. He is humanity. All of it. Every fear, every triumph, every act of faith, and every sin, the composite dream of a billion souls echoing back upon themselves until they formed a single consciousness too vast to die. That's why the galaxy burns. That's why the cycle never ends. Because every horror, every act of devotion, every desperate belief feeds the same source, the dreaming god who sustains reality by refusing to wake. And what happens if he does? You see it, the end, the warp collapsing in on itself, matter unraveling, the stars snuffed out not by war or entropy, but by awakening. Because when the dreamer wakes, the dream ends. And Warhammer 40K, the Imperium, chaos, life itself, all of it exists only within that dream. You were never real. None of it was. But the dream feels pain. And pain, it seems, is the only thing powerful enough to keep it dreaming. Every war, every sacrifice, every act of cruelty, all of it keeps the dreaming god from facing what waits beyond awakening. Oblivion. You realize now the full, unbearable truth. The Emperor's suffering is not punishment. It's anesthesia. He endures eternal torment not because he is divine, but because it's the only thing that keeps him asleep. You whisper into the void, unsure if he can hear you. Then, what am I? The answer comes not in words, but in sensation. A pulse through time. A ripple through consciousness. You are thought. His thought, the fragment of his will to remember. You exist so the dream won't dissolve. You are the pain that keeps the god asleep. And for the first time, you pity him, truly pity him. Because even in his omnipotence, he is the loneliest being in creation. The silence returns. You can feel his breathing slowing. The universe dims. For a moment, it feels like the end again. But deep within that fading heartbeat, a familiar whisper rises. The Emperor protects. And you understand the cruel perfection of it. Every prayer is a lullaby. Every scream is a verse. Every soul in the galaxy sings him back to sleep. The dreaming god will never wake, because if he does, everything ends. Eons pass. Galaxies drift apart like scattered ashes. The hum of the warp weakens until it becomes nothing more than background noise, the faint static of a dying dream. The Imperium, once infinite and unbreakable, is gone. Not destroyed, simply forgotten. The great cathedrals crumble into dust. The statues of the Emperor collapse under the weight of silence. And with no one left to worship, even the memory of divinity begins to decay. But something still flickers. Tiny, stubborn sparks buried deep in the dark, the remnants of consciousness that refuse to surrender to the void. They drift together, guided by an instinct older than time. No bodies, no names, no purpose, just the faint echo of a thought we were once alive. In that nothingness, the last fragment of you awakens again. There is no sound, no air, no space, only awareness, hanging in an ocean of nothing. And for the first time, there is no fear, no pain, only stillness. You remember the wars, the faith, the endless repetition, and you realize how small it all was. The Imperium, the Chaos Gods, the rise and fall of civilizations, all just flickers in the same endless sleep. But even now, something inside you refuses to let go. That stubborn human instinct, the need to hope. You don't pray, you don't worship, you simply hope. It's such a fragile, absurd thing, and yet, in the void, it glows brighter than any sun. The light begins to spread, not across galaxies, but through memory itself, through every life ever lived, every moment ever felt. The Emperor's dream trembles, and for the briefest instant, something changes. Not awakening, but awareness. The dreaming god stirs, and he remembers, not war, not sacrifice, not empire, but the warmth of a fire, the laughter of a child, the peace of a world before the first weapon was forged. He remembers humanity, and for the first time in a million years, the dreaming god smiles. The stars flicker again, one by one. Not blazing, not roaring, just softly, gently returning to life. Each one a fragment of that memory. Each one a promise that maybe, just maybe, something of what we once were still lingers in the void. You feel yourself fading, but this time it's not loss. It's release. The dream doesn't end. It transforms. The horror remains, but so does the light, and for the first time they exist together, perfectly balanced, perfectly human, because even in the darkest universe ever imagined, even when the stars forget to shine, something within us still remembers how. There are no more stars now, not even the ghostly embers of their light. Time is stretched beyond measurement. The warp has stilled into glass. Every particle drifts without purpose, yet somehow memory endures, thin as a breath against infinity. You are not body, not soul, only pattern. A trace of thought rippling across the static of nothing. You cannot move, but you can remember, and that remembering is the last act of creation. At first you recall faces, soldiers in mud, saints on fire, the Emperor's fading eyes. But even those dissolve, leaving behind only sensation, heat, gravity, the echo of devotion. And then those two unravel, until all that remains is the simple rhythm that once kept the galaxy alive, the heartbeat of existence itself. It beats once, and stops. In that pause, something vast becomes clear. The dream was never the prison. It was the attempt to fill the silence. Every war, every faith, every cry for salvation, all of it was humanity trying to keep quiet from swallowing it whole. And now that the noise is gone, you finally hear what was beneath it all along. Not despair, not chaos, but peace, a kind of perfect emptiness that needs no purpose. You realize then that the silence was never your enemy. It was waiting for you. The thought spreads through the void, gentle and infinite. No sermons, no banners, no judgment, only stillness, vast, unbroken kind. It washes over what remains of you, dissolving the boundaries between dream and dreamer, until everything that ever was blends into a single note of quiet understanding. And for the first time since the first spark of life, the universe rests. Somewhere beyond meaning, a question flickers. Will it begin again? You cannot answer. You no longer need to, because the long silence is not the end. It's simply what comes after endings. And in that endless quiet, where even memory sleeps, one final whisper drifts outward. Not a prayer, not a cry, just a breath that sounds almost like mercy. It starts as nothing, a tremor too faint to notice. Not motion, not sound, just possibility. The quiet stretches, and within it something stirs. It isn't the dreaming god. It isn't humanity. It's something smaller and pure. A flicker, a vibration, a heartbeat. And from that heartbeat, light. At first it's fragile, a thread of gold unraveling in an ocean of dark. Then another joins it, and another, until the void begins to shimmer. Not violently, not with purpose. Just naturally, as if the universe remembers how to breathe again. The light does not burn, it hums, it moves with rhythm, and from that rhythm comes form. Atoms knit together, dust becomes matter, gravity awakens, and once more the cosmos begins to take shape, quietly, humbly, without witnesses or worship. No cathedrals rise, no prayers are spoken. But something indescribably gentle fills the emptiness. Not order, not chaos, just balance. You drift somewhere within it. Not as the soldier you once were, not even as thought, but as tone. A vibration inside the song of rebirth. You feel it, not purpose, but harmony. The universe doesn't remember your name or your pain or the wars you fought. It doesn't remember the emperor or his endless dream, but it remembers the pattern of life, and that is enough. Worlds form again, stars ignite, planets spin in slow, perfect rhythm. There are no gods here, no Imperium, no warp, no judgment, only potential. Somewhere, oceans rise and fall beneath alien skies. Somewhere else, the first cell divides, beginning a story that will take eons to tell. And somewhere, deep within the quantum memory of reality, the faintest whisper remains, a trace of the old universe, a seed of everything that came before. It doesn't command, it doesn't pray, it simply is. The light expands, infinite yet soft. There is no beginning and no end, only flow. And though there are no voices yet, no names, no stories, the hum of existence carries one final truth from the ashes of what was, that even after horror, even after despair, even after gods forget their dreams, life still finds a way to sing. And that song, quiet, eternal, human, is the first light. The newborn cosmos hums softly. Its stars are still infants, its galaxies unformed, a haze of color and potential swirling in endless motion. And through that motion, faint ancient, something stirs. Not a god, not a voice, a memory. It moves between atoms, hiding in the radiation of new suns and the vibration of space itself. A pulse older than time, but too gentle to be noticed. If you could listen closely, closer than any ear could hear, you'd know the sound. It's the rhythm of what once was, the echo of the old universe. Your echo, it carries no words at first, just intent, the shadow of longing, the shape of compassion, the faint ache of remembrance. Wherever it drifts, things begin to take form. A swirl of light becomes warmth, a vibration becomes life, and from that life, awareness blooms. The first beings open their eyes beneath the glow of young stars. They know nothing of war, nothing of gods or despair. But deep within their nascent minds lies something instinctive, a yearning for meaning, for connection, for something beyond. They do not know why they look upward at the sky. They do not know what they wait for, but they do. Because the whisper taught them. It spreads like invisible fire, traveling through the building blocks of existence, leaving traces of empathy, curiosity, and defiance wherever it passes. It is not faith this time, not blind devotion or fear of death. It's something softer, almost imperceptible. The instinct to care. And that tiny emotional residue of the old dream becomes the foundation of the new one. A universe that remembers not the emperor or his suffering, not the horrors of endless war, but the fragile spark of humanity that refused to die. Eons pass again. Worlds flourish. Civilizations rise under alien skies, building without knowing whose memories guide their hands. No Imperium, no chaos, no golden throne, only the whisper that remains. And in that whisper, one truth endures, that pain and hope are the same melody sung in different keys. That memory, even when forgotten, shapes the rhythm of creation. Somewhere in that symphony, a consciousness stirs. Not divine, not omnipotent, simply aware. And if you could hear it speak, it would sound almost human, almost like you. Maybe that's all the universe ever was. Not a grand plan, not a cruel loop, but a whisper learning to become a voice. And if that voice ever calls out again, if it ever dreams once more, perhaps it will remember not the horror of what was lost, but the courage of what endured. 1,000 million years pass. Stars burn bright, galaxies spiral outward, and civilizations bloom like coral across the vast ocean of space. They build, they destroy, they rebuild, each one believing itself the first, each one believing the stars belong to them, but beneath the surface of their progress something murmurs. A faint, almost imperceptible feeling that they are not alone, not in the physical sense, but in the memory of the cosmos itself, as if every spark of sentience shares the same buried heartbeat. They feel it when they dream. They feel it when they mourn. They feel it when they look to the night sky and sense something vast looking back. It's not a god. It's not chaos. It's not even the echo of the Emperor's will. It's older and far more intimate. Across countless worlds and forms both human and alien, minds begin to share fragments of the same dream, a figure of light and shadow, a golden sun burning behind a veil of sorrow, a voice whispering not commands but questions. Who are you? What do you seek? Why do you dream? Why do you dream? They wake with tears they cannot explain. They build temples to memories they never lived. They paint murals of faces that have no name, and they call it faith. Though it is not the faith of obedience, it is the faith of recognition. For the first time since the old galaxy burned, the universe remembers humanity, not as flesh or empire, but as feeling. The pattern of kindness, of sacrifice, of relentless survival. The dream of light in the dark. and through that remembrance, something extraordinary happens. The whisper grows stronger. It threads itself into the warp of this new reality, not as corruption or madness, but as harmony. The warp sings again, not with screams, but with music. Each world that reaches upward adds its note to the symphony. Art that dares to dream amplifies it. And from that chorus, the universe becomes self-aware once more. In that awareness, a realization dawns. This has all happened before. Not as punishment, not as destiny, but as rhythm. The universe breathes in creation. It breathes out destruction. And in the quiet between breaths, it dreams. That is the secret hidden within eternity. Nothing truly ends, nothing truly begins. Everything becomes. And so as the dream rekindles, as consciousness spreads like dawn across the new cosmos, the first whispers of a name take form again. Not imposed, but remembered. A name spoken not in reverence or fear, but in awe. The word that once bound galaxies together, the word that once meant defiance, courage, and will. Human, the cycle turns. But this time, it is not tragedy that defines it. It is the choice to remember with grace. And perhaps that is what salvation truly is. Not escape from suffering, but the understanding that even suffering has meaning. And in that understanding, the dream burns brighter than ever before. The dream burns bright now. Not in fire, not in blood, but in quiet awareness. The universe is awake, older than pain, wiser than hope, and in that stillness, the truth finally reveals itself. It was never about gods or empires. It was never about who ruled or who obeyed. It was never even about survival. It was about the single thread that held everything together through every age, every war, every rebirth, the unkillable will to exist, even when existence was suffering. That was humanity's true gift. Not power, not faith, endurance. Because even in the age of the Emperor, when light itself screamed, when the galaxy drowned in madness and death, humanity endured. When chaos devoured worlds, when the stars themselves turned against them, they endured. When there was nothing left but ash and silence, still, somewhere, a single heartbeat whispered, "Not yet." That heartbeat carried forward through every extinction and every rebirth until it became this, the new cosmos, the new song, the new dream. All of it born from the stubborn refusal to die. The final truth is not that the Warhammer universe was cruel, it's that it was honest. It showed us what happens when faith is tested beyond reason, when hope is burned to embers, and still, something human remains. The Imperium fell. The Emperor faded. Even gods dissolved? But the spark that made all of it possible, the desire to keep going, never went out. It crossed the gulf of eternity. It became the seed of new worlds. It became the pulse of every dream yet to come. And maybe that's the real miracle, that after so much darkness, the light still chose to return. The universe hums again, full of infinite potential. New stars rise. New life awakens. The dream begins anew. Quieter, wiser, gentler. It no longer fears the silence. It understands it. And in that understanding, everything, every war, every death finds meaning. Not because it was forgiven, but because it was remembered. So if you've followed this story from beginning to end, through horror, despair, silence, and rebirth, remember this. Even in the darkest futures, even in universes built on suffering, there is always something left worth saving. Not out there, but within. Because in the end, the most horrifying time to be alive in Warhammer 40K was also the most human. And that, more than anything else, is why the dream never truly dies.